Guys, welcome back to the Independent Investor Channel, man. It's great to have you guys with us. We're going to probably go a half hour tonight, probably cut it a little short tonight, give myself a little bit of break. It's been an absolutely crazy week for me. Um, I'm really drilling down and putting pressure on the career, that's for sure. The investing landscape has been quite an interesting one since the start of this decade in 2020. We just had a little flare up of COVID. I thought we were kind of done with that. So that kind of reintroduced itself back into the equation today. So kind of a little bit of a scary time anyway. It's a confusing time. For me, it's been pretty steadfast. I've been, in one of those places in investing that I've been watching it diligently for the last 3 years, doing what it is that I do. And it's been a rough patch. And I've had this over, the 25 or so years that I've been involved in financial markets. I would suggest that maybe half of that has been involved in financial markets in the correct manner, not to be a little bit caught up in the euphoric hype at the end of the last decade, getting caught up in some of the SPAC craze and some of the speculative investing things that, quite frankly, I'm still kind of paying for a little bit, or kind of looking to phase away from that. It just speaks to the temptation. And I'm that type of YouTuber to actually embrace those mistakes and actually convey those mistakes, those that I deem mistakes, and admit to not being immune to in the investing arena, that's for sure. And I often state that, with all the mistakes I've made, it's still pretty amazing for us to be staring down the milestones that we are staring down. A lot of different pockets of areas of the financial life that are working, and the professional life that help kind of speak to that end. And it's interesting how areas are percolating when I'm not focused on them, and then there's other areas that I focus on that just aren't doing a whole lot. The speculative market is really just surprising to me, in that I've really talked about how volatile the speculative market can be. You can make some money, get a little appreciation here and there, but for the most part, it's been really dead. And there was an interesting article, actually a newsletter directly from the CEO of Mullen Automotive that I really enjoyed reading, discussing, the disconnect between what he perceived to be value in the company and the onslaught of attack in the open market. Now, I don't know if any of these claims are true, but I tell you, it seemed to me to be a pretty sincere letter. Interesting enough, the stock shot up 68% in a day. I don't know what the stock, I don't cover Mullen enough to report out on it. I know some folks in the group have actually asked me to comment on it. I know they're in the EV space, but it kind of an interesting, what I took to be a cry for help for a stock that had recessed below the 50-cent level, and not to speak to some of the other names that I've watched some mark progress on and not really receive any favor in the market. It's been interesting. Um, I look at it diplomatically. I could choose not to invest. There's always that option. I choose to become a participant in financial markets, and am always actually very fascinated by the ebbs and flows of financial markets, and the opportunity again that's made possible through financial markets, the percolation and in areas and pockets and facets of my financial application. And I know that's going on for you guys too. The reason I share that is it's just part of the game. And as independent investors, we really have to always continually evaluate what works, continually remain steadfast on those initiatives that we know do work over the long term. And in all fairness to myself, not to just completely beat myself up for the entertainment of a social media audience. There's been some pockets of real brightness, especially through the channel with some of the opportunities that we've received to make a little bit on the side through the project, and that's been really nice. Some of the other projects that I've done in the past, some affiliate marketing, some of the things with the website, one of the most proudest projects that I've ever done, and then podcasting have really just turned out not to be quite as lucrative. And as a matter of fact, just kind of dried up altogether, which I think is kind of a sign of the current phase that we're in. I always contend that I would do this project no matter what. It's a topic that I'm really fascinated on. I'm watching the new HBO series hit Netflix actually with Dwayne Rock Johnson, called Ballers. And I'm just like, man alive, what would it be like to spend money like that? I'm pretty conservative in my application, that's for sure. There's a few things that I like to justify, things that I buy for work, and things that I buy in some of the hobbies that I carry out, but nothing crazy. But it certainly does play into my idea that I have for a long time separated from my surplus cash. In other words, for a lot of you guys out there that have worked over the course of your lives to earn a good living and to have a good set of security set aside in way of some um, capital savings, for us that are happy in our lives and happy with the many things that we do value, we can kind of separate from our money, and by doing so it actually allows that money to fortify on its own. And I find that one of the greatest secrets that I can share with individuals is that the more you can psychologically embrace that separation from your money and not be dominated by it, the more money you will ironically end up making. And it's a very powerful thing to look at your financial status as just that. There's been many times, I think over the last 3 or 4 weeks, at least since August has started, that I can remember one modest up day and one day today, which was up pretty handily. The rest of the time, I think, and in all fairness, there's probably a couple more green days in there, but for the most part, it's been pretty atrocious this August for me. I think the S&P is off 4 or 5% anyway, which is okay. Certainly a lot easier to take those lumps when we're investing passively in the markets. But some of the speculative investing to continue to pay for those, and to pay for them in the fashion that I have, especially along some of the phenomenal microcap stocks that I cover. I'm going to name 5 of them for you at the top of the live stream within the first 10 minutes. And it's going to be really fun to kind of set baselines in these stocks here, really monitor the landscape and really see where these spaces goes. Now, there's some thematic investing that are attached to these spaces. I still think that the EV space is very fascinating. I think that the plastic recycling, if not directly related to combating the effects over this world that we live in, and trying to take steps now to clean up or maybe even curb the I'm not even going to say that we've caused damage, right? I have my own personal beliefs, but there's a lot of people very politically charged on this. My opinion is a lot simpler than that, and aimed at being apolitical right down the line, as I typically do, so as to keep our eye on the prize and not promote us taking allegiance with either blue or red. I think that's a futile escape from thinking in most cases, to be honest with you. But plastic recycling, I think, is one of those, at least within the next 10 years, and probably some huge global initiatives to help curb the effects that are made by the plastic waste that is ending up, unfortunately, in our landfills. And when that opportunity was brought my way, there was a lot of education that went into my awareness piece, and it really does speak to my conviction on this opportunity. Now, is it going to play out tomorrow? Yeah, I'm not sure. This micro cap space, that's got me fascinated. The S&P 500 bores me, okay, and that's wonderful because I'll make a ton of money off of being bored. right? And I think for some of us guys here that, you know, invest and enjoy the craft of investing, I do think there's an element of challenge to engaging in something a little bit more than just passive investing, albeit super important, and for the vast majority out there consumed, if not in its entirety, by a 401k or just a passive total market ETF or index fund to help satisfy that tried and true principle in investing, whether it be done passively. For me, I'm fascinated, and it's not so much the fascination of looking at it and enjoying losing money. It's not really about that. It's really about looking at the fundamentals of a company, irrespective of, in some cases, the token investment that I have in each of those. Voxter being one of the most fascinating that I don't share through the channel because there's a colleague of mine through YouTube that actually shares that story and kind of owns that story as far as sharing it. But I am a stock owner in Voxter, and I think the story is fascinating with digitizing the real estate space and all that is deficient about real estate transactions. And, I just talked to a realtor just today about a foreclosure that's come available here on Staten Island. And it was a funny conversation. It really was. Anymore dealing with real estate that comes on the open market has been so picked over, and dealing in the foreclosure market, we both estimated that this property that's starting out at about 550 on the public forum for auction is probably going to go for about 950. I think somebody will probably pick it up for 8.25 cash, and the property needs probably six figures of work to go into it, right? So, where there were opportunities in the past, I think in more of a normalized market anymore, if you get this thing wrong, you're ending up holding a note that is going to cost you, well, triple what it did just 2 short years ago. So just fascinating times. So the small cap market certainly has my attention. The real estate has my attention for all the wrong reasons. That's for sure. This is not sustainable, in my opinion. The talking heads in the real estate and mortgage business would suggest that somehow we've redefined the home to be more of a sanctuary to the tune that every house should be worth $1 million in this country. I beg to differ. And if that's the euphoric idea that will settle in this country, then I'll just buy 100 acres when I retire and I'll move abroad. Which, quite frankly, that is absolutely alive and well in the cards for yours truly. On the independent investor channel, there's no problem with that. I'll take my pension abroad. I have no problem with that because, if I can speak bluntly, these properties are not worth it. They are just not worth it. And the amount of overhead that needs to be carried by new mortgages now for the folks that got in or are in currently, enjoy it, because you really are holding an absolute jewel of an investment if you were able to get in during the recessed mortgage rate time period. I'm going to go back. I just saw one of my favorite videos, and I've only seen it once. The Big Short just hit Netflix. If you guys haven't seen that, I highly recommend catching that. It is just an absolutely phenomenal piece of content explaining the over leverage and the lending frenzy that was going on in this country. And here we are just 10 years removed of such a debacle where the allure of real estate is just too powerful to not almost be recreating the same situation. I have nary heard that there is a bubble going on in real estate right now, but I find it ironic how we can't suggest that somehow that these interest rates and the current levels that we sit at right now is curbing buying. We know that as a fact, and it is also curbing selling. The market has just come to really a halt altogether. So it's interesting times. Good to see you, Matt. Thanks for stopping in, brother. I really appreciate it. Very cool. And Dave's in the group here, man. All the best wishes to you, my friend. I hope all is well for you. I really do. I hope you and your family are all right. I know you're not on Maui, however, too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned. When I have family and friends over there, dealing with what has been just an absolute tragedy in paradise. There's no doubt about it. So thank you for coming in, my friend. I really appreciate it, and it's great to see you. Nice. I found a couple moments to step away from my studies. You guys understood after 18 years of culmination in my career, I'm actually trying to do work a magic act here in my profession, and I've never been so motivated to do so. If there's anything that can come out of listening to my message, it is to look at the bright side in all cases. And the last 3 years has done nothing but dole out some pain, not necessarily in specific holdings, but really across the board. It's just been kind of a drag with the market. And I'm not going to put my whiskey sour, you betcha. Changed my train of thought, my friend. But I'm not going to cry about spilt milk. I certainly just want to give you guys a pulse of how I'm feeling about the market now. And the S&P, stroking up 20% quickly at the first of this year, in the face or coming off of a year in 2022 that saw the markets down just shy of 20%. I mean, statistically, guys, that's a wash. Is it worth getting all excited about? And devoting new capital to markets at these elevated levels with the systemic issues that we have going on. The one that nobody talks about, Nikki Haley did the best job of addressing the fact that Republicans voted for what, an $8 trillion increase. Earmarks in the last budget bill, Democrats asked for 2.5 trillion, something like that. It just made me kind of cringe in understanding that I think both of the political parties have pretty much lost their freaking marbles, both of them. They're completely and utterly disconnected from the common folk, completely and utterly disconnected from representing the people that they serve, certainly, and completely and utterly disconnected from all reality. I'd love to pick somebody out of the panel that's just completely new. It completely new. I don't want any established anyone in there. I'd like to have some fresh ideas to get in here and look at what I think is the most systemic risk to our markets, and that is the national debt. My friends, mark my word, I pride myself on having independent thought. I charge you with doing the same. But the debt that we have in this country is unsustainable. It puts people in a huge, huge corner, especially folks like me who are capital intensive with, investments and cash and some alternative investments certainly. But I'm not going to get to eat my guns and ammo. All right, someday I'm not going to get to eat my gold and silver. I'm not going to get to do that. But at the same token, I'm probably not going to get to eat my paper either. And with the fact that the devaluement of our currency is happening at such an alarming rate, it certainly does fascinate me in the dynamic and complex environment that we see ourselves in here in 2023. Where do we go from here? Right? You guys wonder why I've got such an interest in kind of more of a speculative stab here, as small as it might be, reflective of the total overall portfolio. Um, there's a method to my madness. I've always contended that investing is more of a necessity as opposed to a right or a luxury, which I think it's all of the above. But for me, I'm in kind of a paper race chase to kind of proceed out of this middle class, because I don't want to be in a class that is quickly deteriorating to a point where I consider in 10 to 20 years will be non-existent in this country. And we are moving in that direction, whether or not you like it or not, whether or not you want to disagree with me or not. There's going to be hardcore conservative Republicans out there that disagree. And there's going to be hardcore liberal Democrats out there that also disagree with me, and they would just suggest that their agenda is winning out, and it's not. The middle class disappearing in this country is a sad thing, and that's exactly what's going on. The haves and the have-nots is what we have in this country. And just as early as this week, I mean, we had proposals for some of those have-nots. My heart goes out to those people, but to have those folks moved right into where I live, right here in New York, to live, to enjoy free benefits up and down the road. And I say free tongue in cheek because we can all understand that those things are very, very expensive to support those types of things. And I'm being a very, very above board with my dialogue. I have to be. I can't get on here and start yelling and screaming about my political affiliation, but these are the types of things that are going on right now in this country, and they are alive and well. Hello from Kailua, Hawaii. I can't buy here. Renting 1,300 square for the low price of 48. Good Lord, brother. That's more expensive than New York City. Holy moly. My BAH here runs about 3,800. Boy, I don't know. At your rate and rank, it'd probably be about 4,500. But yeah, that's insane. I used to remember a day, David, and I'm sure you could agree with me, where we would look at $4,800 and say, man, sure be awesome if I could earn that per month. That's just what you're paying in rent. Boy, how times have changed. Isn't that crazy? Very cool stuff, man. If you guys have any questions for me, man, leave them in the group here. Like I said, I was a little bit reserved in actually doing the live stream, but I found it important and in line with my duties to touch base with the community. This is really important to me. I hope you guys appreciate it. I really do. I enjoy the project, but the live stream has just been teetering off a little bit from week to week, and certainly even I have my breaking points to whether or not the project is even worth it or not, whether or not we are making an impact, whether or not the investing topic is even one that needs to be discussed, or people want to discuss, or am I trying to bridge too big of a gap for people in understanding that in some countries the financial discussion stays within the household. I'm just not one of those in my application understand why that's necessary. I think we can share different ideas. I think we can share different disciplines, different ways of tackling this monster that is all too often elusive to people who do not participate, and all too often very, very cruel to those people who participate incorrectly. And I share some of those surface level cruelties with you guys as far as my own personal involvement with the market. But I can kind of do that a little bit tongue in cheek because I've been doing this a long, long time. Chris, good to see you, my friend. Been a little while anyway. It's good to see you. Very cool. Hope all is well with you, and real nice to see you, man. Thanks for popping in and saying hello. Really appreciate that, man. Very cool stuff. And Everclear Boys next on the ledger. Very cool. Hi, Ryan. Hope all is well. All is well. Nothing but challenges doled out here in New York City for you guys that kind of don't understand the current state of things with Ryan and the Independent Investor Channel and the grander Ryan household. We've got about 4 years left here in New York City, and it will be a proud day when we do actually pull chocks. I'm giving myself this time to solidify everything that I've been working for. And here in New York, it's kind of the big show for what I do with my profession. And it's a wonderful opportunity for me to do what it is that I need to do and to continue to do. I have plans to continue out and really finish this career strong. I absolutely love doing it. I would stay at work and just continue to work. I chalk things up about 3:30 every day, but I would just stay at work until 5, 6, 7, 8 at night because I love the job so much. I love the knowledge piece. I love the twist and dynamic application. It's across the board in what I do. It's really, really a lot of fun. And the real takeaway and why I share that for you guys is number one, it's been a huge contributor to my overall financial health and well-being. If you can enjoy doing your job, it's even more good. Okay. Um, but to find a job that you actually really enjoy can kind of help take your mind away from the program that we all call our financial health in looking to build wealth. And I guess it depends on how much rigor and how much attention you put on to building your number, because at the end of the day that's kind of what we're talking about. And I try not to put a whole hell of a lot of value on, okay, if you've got 1.7 million, or you've got 70,000, or you've got 7,000. I don't really put a whole lot of value on that number as it reflects to you as an individual. I just put a value on that insofar as the number. That's it. This is a wealth building channel. Okay. I expect people to look at their number and try to revolve around that number and grow that number over time. In its simplistic terms, that is what we're after here. Okay. And a lot of people don't really separate or differentiate between what they bring to the table as individuals and what they bring to the table as far as building potential for themselves. Mhm. And I think if you prove to yourself that you can do it and build your numbers, I actually think you'll find that it's a hell of a lot easier than what a lot of people would have you believe, or you would have believed for a long, long time yourselves. Okay. The amazing part for me, man, is the more that I separate from my money, the easier it is to make. The less I focus on my money, as far as just having the program set and understanding the fundamentals of why I do what I do, and thinking about that stuff less, the better off that I do, both mentally, physically, dietary, spiritually. It all kind of goes round and round when when you're looking at making sense of this thing, especially in the face of the last 3 years being somewhat neutral in my book as far as an investing thing goes. I don't really cover the landscape in YouTube. I'm not really that interested in what other projects are doing. And I would imagine that the pulse out there in the investing community is somewhat the same. Now, if we get a little bit of reinvigorated activity, let's say in the small cap space, we get a little bit of movement in some of these companies. I mean, Parcel Pal, for example, is a company that I do cover. It just traded lower than a fractional cent, 1 penny. You can own shares in a company. Guys, I walked by a shiny copper penny today on the ground and I continued to walk by it, right? That's the value that we put on companies like this anymore, where we've just really discredited them. And this particular company has about a market cap of about 4 million CAD, about 2.5, 3 million US. It earns about 14 million per quarter, and I expect that this quarter is going to be one of the best quarters ever. I expect continued margin expansion, close to 18% this time around. And I expect them to announce cash flow positive in US operations. I look at fundamentals like that, and what we can glean is the manipulation behind the scenes, who took large swaths of these companies, and they can't get out from behind the shadow of at one point being a pump and dump, right? At one point they were terrible, and trying to shake off that funk is continually having its overhang. And it'll be interesting to see if ever this company can continue to raise capital, to keep expenditures low, to improve the technology within the fleet, and continue to win business amongst some of the who's who in logistics, starting with Amazon right smack at the top, GoodRx, and Cisco, to just name a few. Is the company worth less than a penny? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's for you to determine. Is it just as prudent to look at a company like J&J or a company like Disney? What a fantastic example of a complete debacle and unwinding over the last 5 years. Why? Because they've become politicians, and not business operators, right? I, for one, personally have very little, if any, interest in going and visiting any of the Disney properties. Mhm. That's just me. If you have small children, you probably feel differently. The last time I went, it was an absolute cluster, and it was more work than anything. And I would rather go somewhere else. I would rather go to Europe. I would rather go somewhere else with my time. I'd rather go to the Caribbean. I'd rather go somewhere even crazier. I could name you 12, a dozen different places that I would rather go that are kind of crazy. Japan, right? Some of those places, New Zealand, Australia, some of those places. How about England? Yep. Spain. I'd like to go to Portugal, for crying out loud. Again, I share these things through social media, and you might just say, yeah, sure, Ryan, you're just talking it up. There's pockets of investors that I'm talking about that say Portugal's where it's at. Think I'm kidding? Look at the cost of living, look at the beaches, and then I look at Long Island here at the brown water that people are paying multi-millions for, and I have to ask why. Just doesn't make any sense to me, right? So all things to deliberate around, that's for sure. Really appreciate you guys stopping by. Yes, indeed, it is a whiskey sour, and I'm glad to be enjoying it with you guys, winding down my week with a nice cherry on top. We call it the fastest 60 minutes on YouTube. Be back with you in just a moment. Says Portugal's not 100% stable. I know, I agree. You see some of the financial debacles, Greece, one of them as well. And you're right. You are right about Portugal. The thing about it is, I don't need a whole lot to be happy. And you know what's cool about my situation? I'm very, very blessed, Ricky. I really am, in that I have the freedom to go anywhere and take my pension anywhere, right? And I say this from firsthand experience. I go to my wife's home country of Czech Republic, and I'm a king. Okay, I go to the food bank here in New York. Okay, right? So compare and contrast between those two statements. I'm not blowing smoke at a social media. I'm telling the truth. There's so much truth that I have. It's so much more interesting than just fabricating a story and sharing it through YouTube. But I go to the Czech Republic. Still have not adopted the euro, as you well know. Still on the corona, and I'm a king, minus the crown and the moat. But you get my point. hmm Take 12 people out to dinner, no problem. $3 a plate, I'm good. Yeah, I can pick up the tab. I'm good. hmm Yeah. Gas very expensive. Certain taxes in Europe are pretty crazy. But for the most part, if I could break through, and I found some pockets of breakthrough on real estate. I just was over at some friends of mine in the Czech Republic just a month ago, and they built a beautiful house, beautiful, absolutely beautiful, vaulted ceilings, brand new tile, absolutely beautiful house on a nice piece of property for 300,000. Now, 20 years ago, I would have said, "Wow, that's expensive," but anymore. I don't know, right? I only mention that tongue in cheek because I would suggest, look, okay, if Portugal's going crazy, then I would just go next door. you know, I'd go next door to Spain or France or anywhere else. Quite frankly, I could certainly end up in northern Italy. I could certainly end up in Croatia, which I found to be one of the most attractive places that I saw when I was over there, from an energy perspective. Energy, just the feeling that you get, But it's certainly worth kind of pushing those ideas out there. And if you don't think that I'm the only one, really just kind of fed up with the misallocation of money in this country, and people are going to have their different ideas about that. They're going to say, no, the country's fine. It's certainly okay that we pay what more in interest per year than some crazy budgets for like healthcare and something else combined. It's just insane the amount that we give away. But yeah, appreciate your comment. I don't think there's any place in the world that can boast of that except for what, I don't know, Norway. They seem to have their stuff together. England, Australia, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting times. It's fun to deliberate around these conversations, and it makes me think what really is going to put me in the driver's seat to open up the decision bank as opposed to close it off. I would still contend that that is capital. That is capital. Now, without security, I don't care to have capital. Without food and sustenance and basic necessities, i.e., a place to live, things like that, then capital doesn't matter. With the erosion and value of capital, it's going to be less and less valuable to have capital in and of itself, right? So, things to think about when you're looking to kind of accelerate this opportunity going forward. And that is really why I'm so steadfast and really kind of pressing an aggressive button right now when I don't think a lot of people are pressing that aggressive button. I just don't. I just don't think that it's a very exploited area of the market right now. Everybody's fallen all over themselves to buy Nvidia at 250 times forward earnings, and or 280, whatever they want to do, and that's great. I own a few $100 in Nvidia. I'm fine with that. I don't foresee myself falling all over myself to put my entire net worth in Nvidia. I find much more value in buying shares of Hyliion at these recessed levels, and maybe even looking at Aduro, which I'm going to film this weekend and turn out a video on Aduro. It's been a little minute here. We've just gone full circle the last 12 months with Aduro, not to have moved at all. And I think that's absurd. They are turning out revenue with their bitumen upgrading. They are a three-tier three portfolio SKU product offerer, and their prospects at 45 million right now. Market cap is just absolutely astounding. They've been very silent in their Shell Game Changer program, which we know that they're involved with, but by nature of many interviews from Ofer, when he's discussed, their obligation to Shell through the Game Changer program, not to share any information. But are you suggesting that that stuff is not going on? I beg to differ, and for just a kind of an ability, the analogy that you're out in the forest and you walk around and you wander and you think you're wandering in one direction and you end up 6 hours later in the same spot that you started. We've just done that with the Duro, full circle around to the starting place, here at about 66, 67 cents. Now I've got some shares as declared on those videos in the 62-cent range or so, but holding true. And is the story going to pan out? I don't really know. Does it have potential to pan out? Sure. Has it? No. Will it be interesting if it does? Yes. Go back and review what it took to actually see those investments to an end, and you wonder why people don't play in this particular arena. It's because it drives most people batshit crazy, to be honest with you. I have just the pedigree to see it through. I have no problem. I could lose every penny and I could be perfectly fine. That is a very powerful situation to be in. It's a very powerful mindset. Some would say dangerous. I had somebody say, come and comment, you just threw money. You just committed the cardinal sin, Ryan. You threw money at a losing proposition. I think that's the retail way of talking themselves out of a position that they potentially never should have been in the first place. I really do. Institutions aren't shitting their pants. Upper management is fine. They're holding their shares fine. Why am I any different in my application than the institutions who choose to hold highly on holdings, as opposed to make up stuff as far as me not being eligible to bottom fish the stock, which is exactly what I'm doing. Bottom fish the company, mhm, at these recessed levels, what I feel is recessed, and not buy into these cliches of committing a cardinal sin of buying calculative positions. I'm not going whole hog. I'm buying calculative positions. Do I have enough to buy quadruple what I bought? You bet I do. Yes, I do. I save, I invest. This is what I do. And to be in this position just kind of speaks to my my conviction and understanding that after 3 years the body of work that's been put in doesn't go for naught. I'm still sitting on what I'm sitting on. Nothing has been lost. The share price has the ability to recess in value. Could it go to 50 cents? Yeah. Could it go to $5? Yeah. Does it change my current outlook on the company at 50 cents or $5? Not in the least. Not in the least. I'm invested in the company long term. Thomas Healy, within the last couple of weeks, suggested that their goal for the company within the next 5 years is to be a tier one supplier to an OEM. If they're a tier one supplier to an OEM, we're talking about a $50 stock. It's just that simple. We're talking about a $50 stock. And I'll come on and I'll talk to you just as calmly as I am now, revolving around the idea of going to 50 cents or $5 and reporting out that the company's trading for 50 bucks a share. There'll be euphoria in the marketplace, and there'll be neon green ooze coming out of Wall Street, just like Ghostbusters 4. That was pretty good. You know, people be falling all over themselves to eat the slime. Hmm. Ghostbusters. Uh-huh. I'll just calmly come on with my 30 patrons in the live stream and calmly report out that it's materialized into 2.7 million bucks. And then what do we do? Saying I can see clearly now the rain is coming. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Just stock market investing, when I truly talk about it being separate from your life, I do truly mean that. I'm investing in the opportunity, not looking at a stock because it's down and I'm trying to bottom fish or adhere to a golden cardinal rule of throwing good money at bad or whatever the hell that means. Pick me an alternative. Buy VT. Hmm. My friend Strongman Personal Finance is still at it. That's for sure. It's awesome. So any of the critics can kick me if they'd like while I'm down. That's totally fine. When and if the potential of the company, if not, it goes away, I'm fine. If the company realizes a little bit of return on value down the line, I'm going to compare it to VT. Hmm. Yeah, when we've got the potential of hundreds of percent return, if not thousands of percent return, and wonder why I've been able to now take that profit and leverage it into other areas because I think that something inevitable is going to happen here. I don't really think that we can just continue along this trajectory and just expect that the S&P is going to be at 25,000 and the Dow is going to be at 75,000 or 100,000 as quickly as we might put it on a trajectory to. I'm not really sure. Hmm. I think a little bit more sense of urgency. If your sense of urgency is to contribute more, lovely, do it to your program. That's fantastic. Um, Larry says that Strongman is big on VT. I know he is, Larry. That's why I brought it up. If you look at VT, VT's got I think 10,000 names in it, and every one of those 10,000 stocks that represent the global market and economy are all phenomenal blue chip companies that you should invest your money in. Mhm. If you want to make a guaranteed 6.5% over the course of your lifetime over your money, you can do that with VT. No doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. If you want to lose money over the short term with the independent investor channel for no hope for the future when nobody else was doing it, you can join my message and lose money, right? And I'll remember that I said that down the line, whether it be 6 months, 12 months, and we'll see who wins in the end. We will see. Okay. I pay way too much attention to financial markets to not understand the risk reward profile over my money. I already invest passively in total markets, and I do so in domestic markets, not necessarily international markets, albeit I do have an index fund that does represent global markets. But for the most part, I enjoy investing in the regulatory oversight that does intertwine with our markets here in the US, and it's significantly much more attractive for me to do those investments the way I do, mostly catered toward the US markets. So that's why I prefer the S&P 500, a little bit more specified in the large cap domestic stock market here. And we own large positions in there. We really do. So I'm happy to do so. You got Reptile Daniel in the house, says Aduro's a long-term hold. Love the company. There's nothing not to like about the company. Probably put a projection of 2027 that's based on the information that they have presented to investors through their website, that of which I expect a revamping of the website here shortly. They're making strides all over the place, and I just cannot fault the outreach. Aduro does a really, really good job for such a small company in their outreach. I am part of that outreach, and for me, I enjoy sharing the company, just because I believe wholeheartedly in the company. I have looked up and down, left and right at Pure Cycle, it'll be cool to see it work, because I really think the plastic problem is so grand that these companies are probably going to find their niche unless they've really missed something with regard to the input and output cost as it reflects or relates to the input feedstock and the output product that they're getting out of the process, right? Unless they've totally just miscalculated on that, I think they're going to find a place. I've seen their product. I have seen Aduro's product, albeit not so much in the public limelight, because Aduro sports a little bit more dynamic input changes to augment or change a desired outcome with their process. Whereas Pure Cycle, what I have seen from them is the clear pellet, the odorless pellet that they're able to produce and then reintroduce as fresh feedstock for new plastics. And I just think it's wonderful. I hope all of the companies make it. I think Ofer Vicus would share in that sentiment, in that there's so few companies out there working on this initiative, and it's such a huge problem, that the amount of runway that Aduro has is almost so scary. It's almost unbelievable, and that's what's happening right now in the eyes of the market. They are not gaining any favor, because it's kind of like, yeah, I'm sure, just another story. And a lot of these stories are prove it stories still. I totally get it. But Sarah's in the group. Sarah's been with the Independent Investor Channel for a long time. Greetings to you in the Northwest. It's great to have you back on the channel here. My coworker moved to Portugal for the healthcare. Interesting. He was working every day to get crappy health care for his wife in the US, and they're much happier now. Um, yeah, so I didn't even mention healthcare. That's very real. I don't know. I just think sometimes Americans suffer from being really naive and not having their eyes open to the reality of what's going on around them every day. And I'm not saying that the political affiliation drives that naiveness, albeit I do believe that sometimes people are really stuck in their ways. I have family members that I won't engage in certain conversation with, for fear of entering into a slippery slope. especially over cocktails. That's the recipe for disaster. But why not? Why is it that certain conversations are faux pas, and others are fair game? And to be honest with you, me personally, I just don't care. But there's a real life tutorial of somebody who is not going to be in the same situation as me. And I've disclosed many times on the channel, my wife is from abroad, right? And in her country, she gets taken care of free of charge for the rest of her life, period. Um, and now that's a socialist country, and I'm not suggesting that that's the way, the truth, and the light, but that's just the way it is. And some people here will pay thousands and thousands of dollars a month in premiums to support what your friend did by nature of just relocating abroad. And what you didn't mention, Sarah, is the fact that their food is phenomenal. Yeah, yeah. No, it's a really cool story, man. I really appreciate you. You sharing that. It's fun. It's funny. No sinkhole worries. The only sinkhole that I've ever been involved with, my friend, was in Orlando, which is a stone's throw away from your backyard. It's great to have you back, man. I hope all is well with you and the family. It was nice to see you chat back into the group. So welcome back. I really appreciate you. He says no, no Spain. And I don't know. I just throw it out there as an example to understand that I don't know, some of the most underappreciated places, even here in the United States, quite frankly. I mean, hell, with the money that is being garnered in suburbia America, I could probably go and buy half of South Dakota with my net worth now. But in New York, I'm just a small fry, two shakes away from being thrown out of my front door for failure to be able to pay the mortgage. Hmm. Yeah. I'm just kidding about half of South Dakota. He can laugh a little bit. It's okay. Maybe the lower corner of South Dakota, I could probably pick up 300 or 400 acres with no problem. Hmm. Go hang out with some buffalo. Hmm. Exercise some mineral rights, right? Exercise some mineral rights. Well, I promised you guys I'd go 30 minutes, man. I'm going to make it the full 60. I'm really surprised. I was telling my folks tonight, I have no idea what I'm going to say. I usually just sit back and watch myself talk. And I've done a pretty good job of entertaining myself this evening. So hopefully you guys have got a little bit of entertainment out of the deal too. I'm a pretty modest fella. Hope you guys see the sincerity. I think there's a few attributes about my channel that I hope are conveyed. That's the most important thing. If you, and I do double down on, you can leave the channel a little bit more inspired, a little bit more empowered, a little less fearful of financial markets, a little bit more confident in your own ability to independently invest financial markets, then I think that's probably one of the reasons why I would agree with you. I believe I am one of the best, no doubt about it. Now, will solidify my place if my conviction is right. Um, I've been steadfast this entire time that I could be wrong on this. I've taken a lot of heat by this maneuver that I'm making, this lateral movement. I'm biding my time. I'm picking my spots, and I am slowly building a potential that of which could materialize. It may not, but if it does, it will certainly solidify my place as one of the best channels out there, irrespective of how many subscribers I have on the channel. There's no doubt about it. And I'll earn that back one at a time, continue to be steadfast on the message. If I come on with a Spider-Man mask and a beanie, you guys can knowledge check me and start throwing hate at the channel. You can certainly do that if I end up selling out like that. Sometimes I think it'd be fun to have an alter ego like Mr. Green. I think that's who I would be. Pay homage to one of my favorite movies, Reservoir Dogs. So you guys could come in and be like, "Hey, man, why do I have to be Mr. Pink or Mr. Gold or Mr. Orange?" And Mr. White has a cool name already, but you can give me heat for being Mr. Green, right? And I think that'd be kind of fun. Take on a little bit of an alter ego on YouTube. I think that'd be pretty cool. Ryan's the best investor. Um, I'm not really sure if that exists. Uh, for those of you, and you've been with me since the beginning of time, Jared, you were one of the very first subscribers to the channel, and I just appreciate your commitment to the project and what I'm trying to do. I've always contended that the subscribers are part of the project, just as much as part of the project as I am. The portfolio and the money piece, that just is what it is. But I'm more interested in personalities, to be honest with you. But um, there's no best investor out there that is immune to mistakes in the market. I think the fascinating thing about financial markets is, for example, if I go to Las Vegas and I play, a hand of blackjack, there's let's say a 50-50 chance, okay, that I'm going to have a catastrophic loss of my money or a catastrophic gain of 100% of my money, right? In one hand, I can play one hand of blackjack in less than 60 seconds, right? The difference between investing is that, let's just take my 100 dividend stock portfolio, for example. That's 100 hands of blackjack that I'm playing all the time, 24 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? When the market opens, when the market closes, I get a little stipend. You know how when you pull a blackjack, they put like a $50 on top of your winnings or a silver dollar on top of your winnings? That to me is the dividends that are being paid out of each of those 99 hands of blackjack that, quite frankly, if I looked at the dividend portfolio, I'd be nary to suggest that probably less than 10% of that portfolio is in the red right now. After a couple of short years, there have been ebbs and flows. When the market was doing really, really well, it was kicking some ass across the board. But here, it's just been recessed a little bit with the grander market. But overall, couldn't be happier, right? Now, those types of wins there are intriguing. Those are fascinating. But as far as some of the perceived mistakes on YouTube, right? You look at it here in 2023 and you say, gosh, Ryan's falling off his rocker, right? He's doing this and that and this and that. I think the deeper understanding is to try to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why I'm eligible to be doing what I'm doing, and what factors are influencing my decisions right now to invest in a pocket of the market where I don't think there's a lot of attention. Well, there's not a lot of attention there, Ryan, because nobody wants to touch it. Right on. That's the very arena that I'm interested in, right? And those types of things probably separate my philosophy on YouTube, because I don't think that everybody that gets involved with investing wins. I don't. I would go so far as to suggest that a lot of people who have ego problems and don't have the right pedigree in their application get involved with investing, and they really hurt themselves. They really do. Now, there are defensive mechanisms and strategies to put in place to avoid those missteps in investing. There truly are. If you invest in the S&P, you can go on about your life and be happy that you did that the rest of your life. You can deal with downturns, you can deal with upticks in the market your whole life. I believe that anybody can establish that baseline in investing and enjoy investing. What I'm trying to do is find a strategic edge. Absolutely. Will that hurt me? I don't know in the end, but that strategic opportunity that I'm trying to seek fits well with my situation. It may not fit well with the masses out there that consume the message. And I think that's something to be taken away, that investing has to fit each individual profile. And I'm steadfast in trying to promote that idea, and really kind of demonstrate the power of investing, and also kind of talk through the evolution of investing as I go through the process, right? So, you know, maybe that's what makes me the best, in that some of the areas I can point to and say, yeah, I mean, we're kicking ass over here, right? We want to see good, strong results. Wouldn't be interesting at all if we weren't garnering any types of, you know, results or any of that type of thing. And it's just yet to be seen. But if you look at it in the acute, there's been never a time over my 25 years that I don't look at my portfolio And I look at it and I say, man alive, we're just absolutely firing away. We're in six gears. We're absolutely crushing it. We're absolutely killing it. I very rarely do that. And then when I step back and I say, okay, well, I go back 5 years and I say, well, where were we then? Where are we now? Right? We were at a quarter million then. We're at a half a million now. Right? And so it kind of puts some perspective on the day-to-day grind and really overemphasizing, the attention that you put on in the markets and your portfolio from day to day, because it just hasn't proven out to be super valuable for me to look at the portfolio at any one given day, like a position in Hyliion, to look at it at any one given day and say, this is absolutely crushing or this is absolutely horrible. I don't look at it in those extremes. I just look at it as an investment marching toward an inevitable milestone toward the end of 2023. That's it. I mean, I hate to just simplify it that way, but James says, I'd say you have an ego problem. That's why you just keep averaging down your position instead of cutting your losses. That's totally fair. And you're entitled to your opinion. Absolutely. And if you would suggest that somehow it's ego or confidence in, kind of where I am, you kind of have to understand too that this opportunity to engage in this line of investing has been built up for many, many years, right? And at the end of the day, it's my evaluation of those learnings over that time to evolve to a place in time where I look at a lot of companies, James. I look at a lot of companies and I choose not to invest. Okay, first of all. Second of all, when I look at the company's evolution from when it started to where it is now, I see nothing but progress. Now, I can choose to change the narrative in either way and say, no, there's not progress. There's not this, and there's not that, and there's not this, because the story hasn't evolved the way that it was projected to evolve in 2020. And here we are in 2023. So I could say, okay, over the last 3 years, there's all the reason, as you would suggest, to cut ties, right? But I look at the marked progress in the company, and I think we're a long way away from even having an educated decision on this company. We've got certification that's looming and inevitable. I think they'll get it. We've got the integration with the OEMs in the way that has been disclosed. We have stationary power in 2024. I don't see any reason to cut losses. That doesn't mean anything. Drawing down my average right now to $3 or $4 makes all the sense in the world. So you can call it what you will. As far as confidence in financial markets, absolutely 100%. And by not cutting losses, I remain in the pocket to still continue to give myself a chance and monitor the evolution of the company. I think it'd be fun to cut losses, to be honest with you. Just walk away and give myself some peace of mind, right? That peace of mind will feel really, really good the first 5 minutes I do it. And it'll feel really, really good the first hour that I have just cut losses. But as time goes along and I continue to monitor the story, now having cut ties with the company that I had conviction on and watched evolve over time, that um, relief will actually turn into regret. And the regret part comes from actually having a story that you have conviction on that you just mistimed that actually materializes over time the way that you see it, right? Is that going to happen? Yeah, I don't know. To your point, maybe the ego is going to drive me to zero, right? And I'll be out on the street trying to eat grass to feed myself, right? Um, I've worked very, very, very hard to make sure that those preliminary baseline needs are met and then some. And so to define my eligibility to engage in speculative investing is fairly shallow on your part, right? In truly understanding what nobody understands about my eligibility to engage in this and any other financial decision that I make, right, through social media, right? I do appreciate your comment, but certainly wanted to give a slight response back, man. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I got one last comment here, and that'll be it for the live stream this Friday. Very cool. One of the coolest thumbnails I've seen. That's pretty cool. Rainwater Games, Ryan, sorry to simplify so much, but what exactly is the holdup? Boeing has contracts for like 7 years of work. Why can't Highland similarly pre-sell and sign deals? Why are we waiting? We being them. I believe that the industry has hesitation across the board. Furthermore, what benefits companies from ordering a product that's not commercially approved? I think that's the holdup to answer your question. Um, and you could sell now based on that premise, but I think it would be a premature move to do that. That's my thesis. That's not my thesis for you. That's my thesis for me, in that would be premature to do that. No, so some people seem to be really, really bothered by it. I'm not bothered a bit. I'm not bothered one bit. And if this is problematic for you or anybody else, not you specifically, your question is a genuine one. But I think for people who have engaged in this, who are now second guessing the fact that it didn't like show them where the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow was within a finite amount of time, I don't have a lot of sympathy for you. I really don't. My message on the channel is very, very genuine in that, sharing a story, one that I feel like is needed in the transportation space, and one that will make a better environment, right, just makes sense to me. In other words, I think the world is better off with the solution than without. It's just that simple. Now, whether or not whatever has transpired up to this point proves to be futile in nature and the company dissolves away, no problem. There'll be a lot of people out there that are happy, a lot of people that are not happy, and the world will still continue to go around, right? And I will still continue to do what it is that I do, guys. We're over 60 minutes. Really appreciate you guys. We'll wrap it down. I appreciate you tuning in. It was very, very cool. Got to a lot of questions tonight. I appreciate the devout subscribers to the channel. First and foremost, I'd invite you to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy content like this. If you enjoy coming and getting a response and a rise out of me, you've got a Friday opportunity to come and vent your frustration to me, vent your frustration at me. Vent your frustration at me for leading you astray in the wide world of financial savvy. In the end, I think it'll all make sense to you guys, and I will absolutely be there shepherding and marshaling this project along to that end. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in for the fastest 60 minutes on YouTube, and we will be back with you next week on the Independent Investor Channel live stream. Be well, guys. We'll catch you next week.